Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm ready to do my full review on the Pena X Series front flipper Apache. It's a mouthful, but it is one of my favorite knives, so we're going to talk about why. There's a lot to discuss on this knife, if I'm being honest, and a lot of reasons why I love it. First of all, look at this thing. I freaking love the aesthetics of this knife. I love the blade shape. I love the OD green micarta. I love the materials used in general. I love the bolster. I think it just looks fantastic. I really, really like this knife aesthetically. I got this knife because I had handled one at California Custom Knife Show and instantaneously asked if I could buy it, and they said I couldn't. They only had a couple there and they weren't for sale. And I had been curious about these X Series Pena front flippers for a while. He's been coming out with a lot of different patterns of these knives, and so there's a sway back one, there's a Barlow one, there's this one, there's one that's a clip point. I don't know, there's quite a few of them, and they're all basically kind of the same recipe. They're just shaped differently, and this is the one that aesthetically stuck out to me the most. And then when I handled one and front flipped it, I was like, I need that. So I wasn't able to buy one there. I've already told this story in my unboxing and first impressions, but found one for sale pretty quickly after and jumped on it. And that's this one. And I knew I was going to like this knife because I had already handled it, but I didn't know how much I was going to love this knife. It has quickly become one of my favorite knives to carry. I carry a secondary every day. Back left pocket is my typical spot for it, and I like having a secondary there for a number of reasons. I've done a video on secondary knives, but this knife is excellent to put in my back left pocket and carry as a secondary. It kind of like breaks some of my preference rules, and it's still just so good. Like, this does not have a deep carry clip at all. It's definitely not deep carry, even a little bit. It's a titanium clip that I think looks fantastic, but it doesn't make the knife carry better than I think a deep carry clip would. But I just don't even care about that because I like so much else about the knife. It's not remarkably lightweight for its size. It's not heavy either because it's small, but I wouldn't consider it super lightweight for its size. And usually for secondaries, I like for them to be kind of as lightweight as possible. What else? It's not super thin behind the edge, like I'm usually pretty critical about, although it's not overly thick either, but I've still really enjoyed cutting with it. It's got a fantastic edge on it. I haven't had to even strop it yet. It's excellent to use. I don't know, it does some things that aren't really my preference. I also am rarely really that into front flippers. I keep trying them and I keep liking them, but I've never found one that I loved. So like I have a Kaiser Feist right now, which is actually for sale. If you're looking for one, hit me up. And that knife is a good front flipper. It works for me. It's not like I have a problem doing it, but I don't find that I just like, I don't know. I think I've gotten that knife twice now because it's a front flipper, and I find front flippers fun for a minute, and then I kind of get over them. It's like OTF switchblades. It's like they're fun for a little bit, but then I kind of get over it. This one, I just don't get over. And the way this tab is done is pretty different. But let's jump in. First, go over the knife anatomically, talk about the materials real quick, and then I'll go through kind of my typical list of things, and we're going to talk a lot about this one. So first things first, the blade is M390. Then we have a titanium bolster lock. So it's titanium on both sides, but it has OD green micarta laid on top of the titanium. If you look at it, you can see the titanium is all one piece. Where the bolster comes up, it's just milled down for the micarta to sit on top of. We have a titanium backspacer, titanium clip, and then it is a bolster lock. So kind of like a frame lock, but it's got scale coming over most of the lock itself. So yeah, a lot of titanium, some micarta, some M390. It's got really nice hex hardware on it, or not hex, sorry, Torx hardware. I really like how defined the spots for your tool are. I haven't had to do anything to this knife, but I just, aesthetically even, I feel like the depth and the definition of that hardware is better than I usually see. These are manufactured by Reate, so maybe that's the hardware that Reate is using on everything these days. I don't know, but I really like this. The micarta is finished well. It's nice micarta. That's really not very grippy. I've had less grippy, like polished micarta. This isn't polished. It is still kind of like a dry texture, but it's less grippy than other micarta I've handled. So the knife is pretty smooth overall. We do have a little bit of jimping, which is nice and fine. It doesn't bother me, and with this knife being so smooth all over, I do kind of appreciate that spot right there. Plus that really also relates to it being a front flipper. So the front flipper tab, come on, focus. The front flipper tab is really kind of on top of the knife here. And so you pull it almost like a Bic lighter. You pull it kind of backwards and over the top. But you can also literally use this corner here, I have found. So you can front flip it like many other front flippers are from the front, or you can kind of top flip it. The top is the best in my opinion, but that jimping does come into play a little bit when it's on the front here, which is why I mentioned it. So yeah, those are our materials and kind of the build of the knife. I just realized, no, never mind. I thought there was something etched in there, but there's not. All right, let's start with ergos. So ergonomically, this is a nice, simple handle shape, right? It's pretty neutral. There's nothing crazy happening here. It's really just a swell toward the back, and that's it. I get all 4 fingers on this knife, just barely, in a perfectly comfortable configuration. I don't know if that's the right term for that, but I get all 4 fingers on here. I wrap around nicely. It's not a thin knife this way. It's fairly thick, especially with the clip, and so it really fills the hand out well. This is one of those cases where the clip actually kind of feels like a part of the grip area. Oftentimes clips feel more like they're getting in the way of the grip area, and this feels like it's part of it. So maybe that's part of why I don't hold the clip against it, that it's not a deep carry clip, even though that's my preference, because it does, I think, fill my hand a little better because of that. And then also, when I'm front flipping the knife, I use the clip. That's what I'm holding on to, and that's what makes it front flip so well in a lot of ways. Anyways, ergonomically, it's an absolute win. It feels great in my hand. I really, really like the way it bulges out toward the back, and then it gets slender more towards the front, and I just feel kind of locked in. I pinch right here on the jimping, and then on this flat spot up here, and in a saber grip, this knife feels, for its size, really capable of doing work. This isn't a hard use knife, in my opinion. It's a secondary. I use it for EDC tasks, but it's been great for everything that I've used it for so far, which has mostly been opening packages and putting it through some cardboard to feel how it does for that type of stuff. And I've done some zip ties with it, but that's average for what I do with all of my secondary EDC knives. So ergos are very good. Action, as I've already touched upon, especially when you're using this kind of top portion of the flipper, is just addictive. It's fantastic. Closing the knife, it's smooth, but it's a light blade, so it's not like crazy smooth, or it's not like drop shutting, I guess I should say, but there's no grittiness at all in that. It's just a nice smooth close every time. I find myself, frankly, front flipping it open and then using my pointer finger to kind of close it like so. That's just the way that I fidget with it. That's fun for me. So I like this knife in terms of its action. Like I said, you can also front flip it the more traditional way. I don't know if traditional is the right term for that method, but a lot of front flippers, instead of coming back over the top here, they kind of come up a little bit, and then you pull from that corner. That works on here, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so action is stellar. Cutting performance, since I already touched on it, let's just kind of go over that. This blade, first of all, it's gorgeous. The way that it's finished looks really, really nice to me. The edge that came on it is even, and it's fantastic. We've got this gorgeous swedge up here as well. It's just an attractive looking blade shape to me. Kind of a sheep's foot, I guess, would be the best term for it. It's got enough of a tip that any kind of piercing task I've had to do with it has been a breeze. It's a very good tip for actual, like, the type of tasks I do with this. If I was trying to use this knife defensively, I don't know if that would be the tip I'd want on it, but this wouldn't be the knife I'd pull if I was in a defensive situation. But yeah, the way that they've done this grind, and it's just a flat grind, but it's not too thick of a blade stock, and it's done really well. it just gets nice and thin down behind the edge. Not crazy thin, it's not a laser. I've certainly had knives that are thinner behind the edge, but considering how narrow the blade is, I think it's definitely acceptable, and it feels good to me. It doesn't feel, I don't know, it feels like the right amount of robust for how tiny this knife is. Any more robust, it would be like, that's overkill. But any thinner, and it would feel maybe less capable. That's probably in my head, but I don't know, I like it. So it cuts well, it carries well. Have I talked about carry yet? I don't think I have. It carries well. This pocket clip, like I said, is not deep carry. It's not my favorite ever, but it has great retention, goes in and out of pocket nice and easily. A lot of the milled titanium pocket clips that I've experienced in the past have been kind of a bummer compared to like bent over clips. And this one just isn't. It functions well. It does leave some knife sticking out of the pocket, so that's a thing. I wish it didn't in a lot of ways, but the clip has redeeming qualities, so I like that. In pocket, it's obviously very slim this way. It's not exactly tall or long this way. I mean, it's a little bit thick, but not overly thick. It's just kind of, it seems, I think, thick for its size. This thickness would feel pretty normal on a knife that was bigger in overall profile. But yeah, it's pleasant in the pocket. Everything is nice and rounded. There are no sharp corners or harsh edges anywhere. There's no danger of accidentally snagging the tip or anything like that. I've had no issues with it coming open in pocket or anything weird. It just carries very well. It's not ultra lightweight, but it's tiny, so it's lightweight. It's just for its size. It's not like trying to be lightweight, but because it's so small, it's pretty light. And none of these materials are like super heavy. It's not like it has brass scales on it or something. But anyway, carries very, very, very well. Cutting is good. Ergos are good. Action is good. I think that's kind of all the points I need to make about it. But I just want to reiterate, like, every now and then, there's a knife that comes along that just clicks with you. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I experience it every now and then. It's not like every knife I buy does that. In fact, it's kind of a rare-ish thing. I go through a lot of knives at this point, both knives that I buy and loaners, and a lot of them are fun to experience for a little bit. I might like them a lot, but they don't like have a connection with me. This is one of those cases where it just does. I just love this knife, and I find myself making excuses to put it in my pocket more. Even though I should be carrying other knives to get ready to review them, I just want to have this knife with me. I like to play with it. I like to show it to people. I like to use it. It's a fun knife to me, and there's a certain character about it or to it that just resonates with me, and I like it more than I probably should. I think anyone would probably like this knife. I don't see, unless you hate front flippers or something, or traditional patterns, I don't know. If your taste precludes you from liking it, then that's one thing. But if you like the way this knife looks and you try it out, I'd be surprised to hear somebody didn't like this knife. I just have such a affinity for it. And it makes me want to try a lot more of Peña's knives. Enrique Peña is a very good knife designer, and his customs are gorgeous. A little outside of my price range currently, maybe one day, but it makes me want to try more of his designs, because he makes the Moolah, which looks really, really cool. I'm going to be getting a loaner of that knife soon. He makes the Rhino, which is totally different from his other models, but also is intriguing to me. He did the Diesel, and all of these are X Series ones that are made by Reate that he's collaborated with that are kind of in my weight class. And so I'd like to try some more of them. And I may end up trying more of these traditional pattern little front flippers, because I like the way a lot of them look. And they make different handle materials, so maybe that's enough to justify having some other ones. But yeah, this is just a knife that I really, really like. In fact, I love it. It's a very good little knife, and it is not one that I anticipate leaving my collection anytime soon. I love carrying it, love using it, and I love playing with it. I love it. It's a good knife. So well done to Enrique Peña and Reate for hitting this one out of the park, in my opinion. It's also funny because Reate's, a lot of the time, I don't have a big connection with, unless they're ones that are good collaborations with cool US designers, like the Sharp by Design Evo Typhoon. I had a connection with. Loved that knife. I'd like to get another one at some point. This one I have a connection with, and it's Enrique Peña's design. The in-house designs from Reate, I've never found one that was at all poorly made. They've all been excellent fit and finish and quality. Everything has been great about them, but I've never had like this attachment to them like I do to some of these collabs that they do. So Reate, do more collabs. I like it when you do that. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you taking the time, and that'll be my full review of the Enrique Pena X Series Apache front flipper. I think I got it right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you on the next one.